Good day, everyone. Today is another video discussion that I will be conducting for you to have a backup and as a reference when you will have a review. So we will be having the module 2, which is entitled as Personal Identification Techniques and its Applied Procedures. And the objectives of this module 2 are the following. This would enable the student to identify the significant features of the different personal identification techniques and discuss the procedures as well as the demonstration of the procedures of the selected PI techniques. So I've indicated in there selected because not all PI techniques we do not really have in the laboratory, but at least we can perform some of it. And knowing the fact that some PI techniques can only be performed by expert. However, it is very important that we have to know also the procedures. Okay, so please bear with me and enjoy the rest of the discussion. So I will be starting on criminal anthropometry. So this particular PI techniques is also known as Bertillon system. And this name was established because of the person behind this particular PI technique and known as Alphonse Bertillon. So in this particular techniques, it involves the measurement of the bony structure of a person. They have to measure the body parts for them to establish the identity. And it is also known to be as the scientific method of identification. So you can see on the image that it is in this way that they are going to measure the body parts of a person. So accordingly, this was then used during the ancient time. But because of the presence or establishment of fingerprints as a means of identification, it was then uh, put into archive. And this was because of the case of Bill West and William West. So this was used in the first recorded case of a conviction using fingerprints in Paris in 1902 in the case of Bill West and William West. But prior to this, they had been identified based on the measurement of their bony structures. So again, referring to the father of scientific identification is Alphonse Bertillon. So aside from criminal anthropometry, we also have what we call criminal anthropology. So it gives emphasis now on the study of human species and the study of criminals. So it involves here the profiling of offender and based on perceived links between the nature of a crime and the personality or physical appearance of the offender. So if you had an ugly face, people will be thinking that you are a criminal. So that is on the physical appearance. So you can recall now this particular topic of which you happen to undertake this also in your introduction to criminology, that the manner or perception of people that an individual commits a crime because it is based on his personality or physical appearance. Okay, so to give us also an enlightenment, I would like to present to you a certain study. So, a study on prisoners and patients in psychiatric institutions was influenced by the British naturalist and evolutionary biologist known as Charles Darwin. So, he was the one or behind the book entitled On the Origin of Species. Okay, another personality who has something to do with this is Franz Joseph Gall, and known to be as the founder of craniology. So he made mention in here that the human characteristics and mental faculties can be read in the shape and size of the skull and brain. So it has something to do with the shape of the skull. That is according to Franz Joseph Gall. So again, another personality is very familiar to us who has an influence in terms of anthropology. So Aristotle is known as the Greek philosopher, and he was known because of coming up with an initiative to coin the word anthropology. So you would see in there the two words, Greek words, for you to be enlightened with respect to the concept or meaning of anthropology. So it is the study of humans and human condition. It is the science of man or human beings. So another detail or terminology that we have to do or that we must know is that forensic anthropology. So it involves now the application of science of physical or biological anthropology to the legal process. So if there is some sort of question to a certain physical evidence and that's needed in the court of law, they are the one who will be in charge, or it is in this field that there is a need to examine the physical evidences or biological evidences that has been obtained from the crime scene. So it would now give emphasis that anthropology is very relevant, or it would help in the conduct of criminal investigations. That's why we are trying to have an overview about this, because we know that in your field of study, it would also focus in the investigation of cases, that we rely on scientific investigation. We do not just rely on the testimony of witnesses. However, we look into the examination of physical evidences by expert and for them to interpret, and that could be used as evidence in court. So accordingly, we have here the detail about who is an anthropologist. So the main thing or the main function of an anthropologist is that they have to establish the biological profile. So it's based on the big four of BI that we happen to encounter in the previous discussion, which refers to age, sex, stature, and ancestry. So they would also provide for the specific characteristics that could be observed or present on the body of an individual. So we have here some important details about people who became pioneer in forensic anthropology. We have Jeffrey Wyman, Dorsey, Dwight, and Europeans had contributed much in the use of anthropology in administration of justice. So for you to know more about them, this personality, you can also browse into the net. You have to surf the net for more readings. Okay, after forensic anthropology, we also have forensic odontology. So by just looking at the image alone, we can now have something in mind that this field of study has something to do with the examination of the teeth. Okay, so usually the teeth is being located, or it is being identified even the person died for so many years. So meaning it's the hardest part of the body that would undergo yung sa decay process, di ba? So we have here the some images. Of course, along with this particular field of study, we consider here the utilization of dental science to legal investigations. So for example, a cadaver has been discovered from a lot, and it's only the teeth that is already available. So for them to establish the identity, they will obtain the teeth that remains in there, and that would be subject for investigation. Okay, so it involves the identification of the offender by comparing dental records, the bite mark left on the victim or at the scene. For example, there is a struggle between two persons, they fight, and for the other person to be released, for him or her to escape, he could probably bite the person. Okay, so that this is an instance that bite marks could be present on the person, whether victim or the offender. So aside from that, this is also the system that measures the teeth structure as a means of identification. When just like fingerprint, we are unique from each other, same as true when it comes to our teeth structure. Okay, so in this particular field also, it involves the proper handling, examination, and evaluation of dental evidence. And this is being conducted for the purpose of interest of justice, and that this dental evidence would be of help in administering justice. Okay, so for us to be knowledgeable also as to the uh, origin of this forensic odontology, it was derived from Latin word meaning forum, or where legal matters are discussed. Okay, so on forensic. So as you would see in here, these are the different main areas of practice that a forensic dentist has to perform. They will identify found human remains, in mass fatalities. Okay, we expect, for example, in the act of terrorism, there is a bombing incident. Aside from that, because of disaster, so you would expect mass fatalities. And of course, before they would probably put them in a mass grave, some family members would like to claim the dead body, and it requires the examination of the dead body for them to claim it. So they could also resort to what we call forensic odontology. Okay, assessment of bite marks, then the cases of abuse, child spousal or elder, civil cases involving malpractice. This is already on the part of a person who is not authorized to probably work on the teeth of a certain individual. Okay, and age estimation. So aside from forensic odontology, photography is very essential also to establish identity of a person. So you could see in here an example that in photography, it would record objects that would lead to the identification of a person who has been involved in a criminal act. So this is a shoe print that has been found on soil, on a certain surface. So it was imprint, okay, imprinted on this particular part. And in the aspect of photography, it is very important to establish the measurement. For example, this is the shoe print of a 6-footer or whatsoever. So what we expect, the shoe print of a 6-footer is, you expect that it is also long. For us, a for 11 person or uh, 5 feet or whatsoever, you would always expect that shorter print will be obtained. So maybe I would we could also base this on the height of a person. Okay, so photography originated from a Greek word photos, so meaning light, and graphos, which means right. So, and the forensic photography was established in Belgium in 1870s, and it became an advanced technology. So, of course, in this field of study, it would enable you to photograph the scene of a crime. Okay? And it is also very essential for you to search for evidences. Okay, not only evidences, but dead body that could be present in there. Okay, and other weapons that could have a connection in the crime that has been committed. So, in some books, forensic photography is also being termed as police photography. So, accordingly, a definition is provided which refers to the art of producing an accurate reproduction of a crime scene or an accident using photography for the benefit of court to aid in an investigation. Okay, once you have a photograph, you had preserved the crime scene. And this would now be very helpful as an evidence in the administration of justice. Okay, it would provide a true and accurate record of the crime scene and physical evidence present by recording the original scene and related issues. But if I would ask you, what could then also be some issues that is related to photography, crime scene photography, or the so-called forensic photography? So nowadays, digital photography is observed or is now being used with the integration of technology. There are possibility that they could make some changes, or they could crop or try to edit the picture. But what is important, being a future law enforcer, you have to adhere with your ethical standards. You have to work with integrity and dignity. You have to be honest as to what is present in the crime scene, and of course, as to what is present in the photograph that you will obtain. So do not do the editing just to cover up the involvement of a certain person, of which it would now again hinder for the administration of justice. So procedures on taking photographs, you come up with the overall photos. Anyway, this is just a browse about forensic photography because you had taken this also. And there is a separate subject for this. Um, you have to do it in a clockwise pattern in terms of crime scene photography. Okay, so aside from that, photograph the body in the immediate vicinity around the body. Okay, next one is keep a photo log. Okay, you have to make the necessary recording or storage, and take a look at all photo. You have to make an inventory. You have to make the recording process, proper selection and implementation of the appropriate photography and computer equipment combined with necessary training and correct workflow. So you have to be skilled also when you are assigned as photographer at the crime scene. If in keeping a photo log, you have to make an inventory of all the photographs that you have for your references. So we have here also the different rules in photographing the crime scene. Make sure that you have to secure the scene. You have to evaluate the conditions. You shoot the scene, and you photograph the victims. The details are here, and please find time also to read. So photograph the evidence. There is a need to photograph the evidence, and you can do it in different angles. So based on the guidelines as required. And aside from that, evidence markers are also required, and it has to be placed at the crime scene when you will take the photograph. In some instances that there are some concerns as to the clarity of the photograph, you can also use what we call special imaging techniques, such as lasers, blue or green lights, and colored filters. Okay, so it is very important that you have to be knowledgeable and skilled when it comes to the application of this special imaging techniques. So for you to know more about forensic photography, you can look at this title in the net. You can Google it. This is written by Steven Staggs 2014 when it comes to evidence photography for additional reading. Okay, iris recognition. We all know that the eyes is very important also and essential in the identification of person. But the main focus of this iris identification are the uh, iris texture, of which we know that it has several features like the freckles, coronas, stripes, furrows, crips, and others. So what is being undertaken in here is that the identifying, or it is used to identify a person by the pattern of their irises. So it is used with the aid of a software and cameras designed to specifically collect iris images. So usually this iris recognition are being used in an airport terminal. Okay. So we also have here the different techniques in the recognition system of the iris image. Okay. So I know for sure that in here, it needs expertise for purposes of examination. And of course, with this session, at least we know how it is being processed by knowing the different procedures. Okay, so just like what I have mentioned, that this is usually used in terminal airport. So these are the different processes. So once a person would walk on the hallway, okay, and a certain area where there is the scanner in there, the eye image will be captured. So there is the so-called pre-processing, iris segmentation, iris normalization, feature extraction, feature selection, and classification or matching. And this is done by taking a look in their database if there are matches that could be saved in there, and to the extent that they would come up with a decision. So that is how the iris recognition is being processed. Okay, so for readings, we also have here the site, and the author is Megan Brandy. And if you want to know more about this, you can also read Iris Recognition Development Techniques, and these are the authors indicated. So after iris recognition, we also have what we call graphology. So when we talk about graphology, it has something to do with the characteristics of handwriting. We all know that handwriting of a person is unique from each other. So for example, uh, the way you write, there is no slant, uh, or it would slant to the right or to the left. And that the manner of writing would also give an interpretation pertaining to your personality. For example, in no slant, it based on readings, it has been said that you are ruled by logic, not emotion. You're very solid and pragmatic. So that is in graphology. It would not only for the purpose of identification, but it gives emphasis also about your personality and character as an individual. When it comes to the slant to the right, it made mention here that you are heart-centered, friendly, sentimental, and impulsive. You highly value friends and family. So this is a nice interpretation if you are uh, if you write, if you have a handwritten that would slant to the right, so you are righteous, or it would give a positive impression about you. So left, you prefer to work with things over people. You are introspective and reserved. You're more me-oriented. So that is the interpretation if you your handwritten would slant to the left. So accordingly, in this forensic graphology, it focuses on handwriting. So I know for sure that many people are trying to mislead another people based on their handwriting. Oh, uh, just an example. In writing your assignment, you might probably let your relative, let your parents, or let your girlfriend or boyfriend write your answer. So uh, with the graphology process, we can determine whether you own that handwriting. Okay? So that is the important aspect that forensic graphology would contribute in the administration of justice and in establishing identity. And also, some people are now into coming up with false document, yung mga fake document. So it is very important that this field of study must be given emphasis. So aside from that, if we have forensic graphology, we have also the so-called holistic graphology. So it is based on form, movement during writing, and the use of space. Anyway, regarding this particular topic, this would also be part of your uh, course in question document. So it's more on question document, but this will be fully discussed. So the analysis of handwriting has been studied for almost 400 years. So try to imagine that. And up to now, it is still being utilized. So forensic investigators believes that this would determine personality traits of an individual. So the different agencies use this for checking application for jobs, recruitment, record. If you would notice that once you will apply in the service, you are required to do handwriting activity, of which they would obtain your handwriting specimen. Okay, so this is also very essential, especially that we have situation about kidnap for ransom. So, and aside from that is suicide notes or blackmailing instances. So it helps in the investigation by determining the psychological state of the writer. So of course, it would help in what we call criminal profiling. So there are different terms in here, of which it originated from Greek word. Okay, so you just try to take a look at this, how graphology originated based on a Greek word. So graphene, to write, and logos, to study or reason. So aside from that, there are other terms that is related in graphology using this. So of course, the word graphology was coined by Abdin Hippolyte Michon in Paris. Okay, and he was known as the founder of the Society of Graphology and the first person to give scientific grounds to the handwriting analysis. So in the graphology, it would involve the analysis of the physical characteristics and patterns of handwriting. And it is used to identify the writer or the person who wrote that handwriting. Okay, so another personality that we have to know is Camilo Baldi. He carried out systematic and practical observations on the way of handwriting. So when we talk about graphology, always remember about handwriting and its relevance to the identity or to the establishment of identity of a person. So we also have here various terminologies for further readings and knowledge. Okay. So along with this, of course, when it comes to examination of handwriting, there is also the integration of technology. And we have what we call CAG, or the computer-aided graphology. And this is one of the systems which enables graphologists to take advantage of computer for them to uh, fast track or to uh, make sure that they would have an accurate result in terms of the analysis. Okay, so that is what we call computer-aided graphology. So aside from this, we have also what we call DNA fingerprinting. So this is a sample of a DNA strand. So you would see that this is the exemplar. That's why it is being labeled as E. This is the specimen. These are the specimen that was obtained. So S1 and S2. So if you try to take a look the exemplar from these two specimens that has been established, it would match with S2 and the exemplar because of the number of strands that has been uh, established. Okay, so that's how DNA fingerprinting is being considered to establish the identity of the person. Okay, so we all know that DNA fingerprinting is the method of identification of which they're going to compare now the fragments of deoxyribonucleic acid, or what we call DNA. So they will do the different processes. And again, this could not just be performed by anybody else. There are persons who are expert to perform this, and we know for the fact that having this kind of examination is expensive, isn't it? So accordingly, the person who invented this system is Alec Jeffries. And he studied the human myoglobin gene. Okay, so, and it is in this way that they are going to detect the presence of genetic diseases and soon came to be used in criminal investigations and forensic science. So it's not just a matter of establishing genetic diseases, but as they go along with the use of this particular field, it expanded to the administration of justice. So based also on history, the first criminal conviction based on DNA evidence in the United States occurred in 1988. Okay, so 1988, you have to remember that. So another thing that you have to remember are the different procedures. Anyway, you can also watch video on YouTube on how the DNA is being processed. There are a lot of videos in there that you could watch, supplement your reading in this particular course guide or module. So regarding also the different uses of DNA-based pattern are provided in here. So for paternity and maternity questions or issues, okay, so whether or not the suspect is at the crime scene or pertaining to his involvement, so they are going to determine some traces or physical evidences in there and determine the identity of a victim. For example, there is a cadaver that has been discovered. It is in this way that they could also establish the identity. And pertaining also to inherited disorders. So we can see now in here the relevance and the importance of the examination of DNA based on the different patterns and the DNA strands. So you can just have a browse on the different terminologies so that you will have more, uh, you could enrich your vocabulary, since these are legal terminologies that are being used in the field of this science. So aside from DNA, we also have what we call gait analysis, and it is known as the study of human locomotion, the way we move, the way we walk, the way we swing the arms, and pertaining to the movement of your body while walking. So, gait analysis is based on the gait cycle. Okay, in its simplest form, is comprised of stance and swing phases. Of course, we believe that each individual are unique in terms of the way they move, right? So that is why it is being considered also to be very essential as a means of identifying a person. So along with poroscopy, we give emphasis on the presence of sweat pores, of which it can also help us in establishing the identity of a person. So poroscopy, the scientific examination of the pores. And the pores are the holes or tiny openings on our skin, of which it is the area where the uh, sweat comes out. That is an poroscopy. So you could see in here the different pores that are present on the skin. So when we talk of poroscopy examination or scientific examination process, these are the things that we can consider. So the number of pores, distance between pores or what we call interspacing, the size of pores, shape of pores, and the position of the pores on the ridge. Aside from poroscopy, this is also an image, okay, pointing out the different pores pertaining to shape being identified and described. So aside from poroscopy, we have what we call podoscopy. It is the scientific examination of the sole of the foot, a study of the plantar area of the foot for purpose of identification. So, okay, again, when it comes to foot, we are unique from each other. So what foot or the you have to select in here the kind or the shape of your foot, sole of the foot. Okay, so that is an podoscopy. Life size assessment of foot load using the principle of mirror reflection. And podoscope can be used for the following measurements: foot load on the supportive surface, assessment of foot arch, misalignment of foot, ankle, and knee joints. So the person will go step on a podoscope, okay, for purposes of recording and examination. So radiology, it is the study of uniqueness of all friction ridge skin formation. So the different ridges that appears on the fingerprints, and this was also coined by David Ashbaugh. So actually, in radiology, there are different processes to consider for you to examine the presence of ridges. And the ridges are the things that would make also the fingerprint unique from each other. So that's why it is again considered to be an accurate way to establish identity of a person. So accordingly, the definition provides that it is associated with all of the ridges and the volar areas and not just on the fingertips as dactyloscopy. So it has a wider scope. But when we talk of dactyloscopy, it's just on the fingertips. Okay, so in radiology, we have what we call the use of ACE-B methodology. A stands for analysis, C for comparison, of which they are going to compare the uh, two fingerprints, the standard and the specimen. Then they are going to make an evaluation based on the comparison. And then E evaluation, then A, then letter V is what we call verification. So they will let another expert repeat the process to determine if the findings of the first examiner is consistent with the second examiner. So that is how radiology is being applied and using the ACE-V methodology: analysis, comparison, evaluation, and verification. So these are the different PI techniques. You happen to know also some of the significant features and the different procedures. So for you to gain more knowledge, you can also source at the web for more reading. So in here, you will be having your activities for you to assess yourself. So you can just have it in your module for the different activities. So I hope you learned something about my video discussion, and please find time to go back and view and watch this video discussion so that you will be refreshed from time to time, knowing the fact that in some instances, when it comes to online classes, we cannot really go away with the internet connection challenges, of which we are unstable for sometimes. So we could also use this video discussion for you to go back on the lesson. So this video will be uploaded in YouTube, and please watch and subscribe. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy and learn something that would give you inspiration and that helps you to perform your academic performance. See you next time. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.